Good morning and good evening, everybody. Let me see. I can use my laser pointer. Okay. Here is the title for my talk. And if you remember me, and I have talked about the this topic in the past few years. Particularly, I've been focused on research for solvent-steam co-injection. Today, my focus is on lessons learned from research, and again, particularly from some of the pilots. And here's our outline, and as I mentioned, I'm going to focus on previous industry pilots, and also mention some of the future pilots. Yes, there are a lot of companies plan to do some pilots in this area. I'm going to soon tell you why. And and then I'm going to focus on the lessons learned from research pilot, and essentially, I'm going to give a comprehensive summary from our research and also from our study on previous pilots. And also I mentioned how could we help you if any company or any person, people want to do some pilots or commercial development in this area, we would be happy to collaborate with you. Again, the challenge is some of you might know this very well and even much better than me. And for the bitumen production in Alberta, and SAGD, it's a common usage. And SAGD is highly costly. And for instance, it takes $50 to $90 per barrel to produce it. And the biggest challenge is SAGD is the farthest growing source of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada. And again, there's another challenge in the next 9 years. The carbon tax will be raised. And currently, the company pay $30 per ton. And over the next 9 years, it will be tripled increased. So now the questions for the company is, you're going to pay the tax, or you're going to pay the development for the new technologies that will reduce the carbon tax. So by looking at the carbon tax increasing, I think a lot of companies try to find new ways to replace the SAGD. So that's the goal we have been studying in for some time. And my chair, it has been focused on a simulation. And we have been focused on stimulation and also purely steam injection. And in the past, in particular, in the past 4 years, we focused on the research for the steam and additive. The additive could be solvent and chemical and gas and even air. In today's talk, I'm going to focus on solvent. And we try to, as I mentioned, on one hand, try to reduce the cost, and on the other hand, probably reduce the carbon tax. And as I mentioned, we have been working on this one for some time, and a lot of my student postdoc have been working in this area. And for the research topics, the student have been working on how to select a solvent for the in the co-injection process, and also studied the solvent mixture-based behavior, and also investigated the key mechanisms for the improvement of the co-injection, and also how to design the co-injection strategy, and develop a simulator for the steam and co-injection. So these are the research topics in the past by our group, by student. And the extensive research has been carried out by our research group in the past 4 years, particularly. We, as I mentioned at the very beginning, in the past few summits, I talked about all this research. Today, I'm going to focus on our summary from the pilots, and also the lessons we learned from the research and the pilots. So if anybody is interested in some of the research we have done, please email us. We'll be happy to share our research outcomes with you. So my focus is on the pilots, and also I don't have much time to go over each of this. So we have summarized all the industry pilots for the co-injection. So I list all the companies, the operating pressure, solvent, and the solvent concentration duration, and how each of them behaved. So as I mentioned, I just summarized of the tables, and then I'm going to take a close look some of the successful ones, recently successful ones. And again, you'll see a lot of companies have done pilots. And so let me take a look at some of the successful ones. The first one is the Imperial one. It has been pilot studied from 2010 to 2016. And this is the location of the pilot area. And essentially, it used 2 horizontal wear pairs. So this is the safety wear pairs. And the concentration is from 10 to 20%. And so the name is a little bit different. It's called the steam-assisted safety. The reason is Imperial oil used a high concentration, 20% concentration. So I'm going to mention what's the good concentration for the solvent. And probably this has been the most successful co-injection pilot. And the reason is you can see the Imperial had attempted to commercialize this process. And also, I'm not going to mention this project again in a moment for the future development. And you could see for one of the pairs, there's 2 pairs, the wear pair 1 and wear pair 2. For wear pair 1, and there was a 30% bitumen rate uplift. And also there's the steam oil ratio production. Again, the steam oil ratio measures the energy intensity. And if you could use less steam to produce more oil, that would be energy very efficient. And for this pair, you can see the solvent recovery was 89%. That's very good. Again, in the steam and solvent co-injection process, the most concerned issue is the recovery of solvent. If you could recover most of the solvent and again, economic, it would be successful pilot. So again, in particular, you can see some of the data Imperial oil used. Again, the operating pressure was 3,500 kPa, and the co-inject solvent is a mixture from C3 to C10. And this is the co-injection. The second wear pair started in 2010 to actually to 2016. And the first wave is from 2012 to 2016. And the concentration, as I mentioned, is up to 20%. So you could see the increase for the production. For the second pair, it almost doubles the production. And also the SOR is reduced from 6 to less than 4. And also for the wear pair, the production was increased from 30 to 50 cubic meter per day, and SOR reduced from 5 to 3. And I do have all the figures. For instance, from here to here is the SAGD. SAGD was used from 2010 to 2012, and then the SA SAGD was used. And for WP2, so for short of time, the SAGD was used, and then with a high concentration of bitumen, and SAGD, SA SAGD was used. So you can see all the figures for the bitumen production, and also for the inject steam, and so the inject condensate and the instantaneous steam oil ratio. You can see. So this is the one of the pilot I would like to mention, and the other one is also the Conachius SAGD plus means steam, that's SAGD. Again, this is the pilot area, and the Conachius again select two wear pairs as a phase one. So this is from July to November, and again in the phase one at the very beginning, the solvent concentration was about 10%, and then it was increased to 15% by volume, and the oil rate increased almost 30%, and SOR is decreased and by 60%. And also for this, in this phase, the solvent recovery and close to the impure oils recovery rate, 89%. So that was very good, very good. So, and then they extended this pilot, as they called it, the phase 1.5. So it's from May 12 to April 15th. Again, the solvent injection about 10%, and then they reduce it to 6%. They still observed the oil rate increase by almost approximately 40%, and SOR decreased by 32%. Actually, if the SOR is decreased by 30%, that's very good index. And if below this one, probably there's some economic issues. So this is the Conachius SAGD solvent pilot, and also we have the figures, the curves for the trials. For instance, this is the first phase one, and this is for the phase 1.5. So for the solvent injection, so we have these figures. So this is also quite successful. And then let me take a more recent one. So this is the Sanko's expanded SAGD, so expanding solvent SAGD from 2019 to 2020. So again, this one worked on the pad. This is the pad, and 4 of our out of 7 wear pairs was used for the pilot, and the concentration, the solvent concentration, was from 5 to 15%. And at the very beginning, and before this pilot, the recovery factor was 23%. And then from April 2019, the ES SAGD was pilot studied. Again, I couldn't tell you the number at this moment. And what I could say is oil improvement has been observed. And also SOR decrease has been notified in this pack. And I think probably Sanko will do more study and more pilot in this area. So this is the more recent one. And also I'm going to mention some of the future co-injection pilots. Again, I list up a lot of them. And in particular, the mentioned in pure oil co-injection pilot was probably most successful, and they planned for commercial scale. And let me mention of this future pilot. Again, they call it SAD, solvent assisted. And the operating at the very beginning, operating the operation pressure, it will be the 3,400 kPa. And the solvent ratio is very high, 16.7%. And again, they expect to do this as a SAD pilot for next 10 years. So again, if this is the true case, it would be the longest pilot for the solvent. So I summarized the previous pilots and also mentioned one of the future pilots. And let me give you some lessons or summaries we have learned from the past, from our research and the pilot studies. And several pilots I mentioned did not perform well. For instance, the Nexon 2006 pilot used too heavy solvent for too brief period, only a couple of months. And also the Sanko, the 2005, not the recent one, the 2005 pilots used a too low concentration, only 2% was used. And the difference in the 2013 pilot was contacted when the oil recovery is already 50%. So this is the residual oil was too low. And also when we studied the pilot, it's very important to have a very thorough sampling analysis and required in all the tests for reliable use value for the solvent recovery. And also a good baseline is very important to make a comparison between SAD and the co-injection process. And also in the past, most of the studies focus on the homogeneous reservoirs, and heterogeneity is very important. To see the recovery rate and heterogeneity plays a very important role. And also for the design, as I mentioned, we have focused on this area, both research and also studied all the pilot process. And the solvent co-injection is mainly an acceleration process. So if possible, try to start the co-injection process as early as possible. And at the later stage of the injection, steam and a co-injection, we may terminate the solvent injection and we want a recovery. The reason is retained solvent may be partially evaporated, and then at the later stages, even though at the very beginning, solvent may not be recovered. At the later stages, solvent could be recovered. So that saves the investment for this process. And the evaporation solvent can result in low residual oil saturation, and that's produce more. And also, as I mentioned, try to inject solvent as early as possible, and with the bitumen concentration is high, and concentration rate based on study at least 10% in volume, and preferable 15%. You may see the Sanko's recent pilot, and also the imperial plant pellet is above this one. It's 16%, almost 6%. And also the solvent selection is very important. Of course, we needed to do studies. So in general, the solvent we needed to have dominant components of from C4 to C6. So let me give a summary for this study. So pellet must be sufficient size and duration. So this is very important. And they mentioned some of the unsuccessful ones use too small size, and also the duration was too low, too short. And also the pellets must be operated in a steady manner. So we need a minimal operation and interference. And the monitoring, sampling, and accurate analysis was very important for measuring the success or failure of a pellet. And also, in general, the solvent is not a pure solvent. In general, it's a mixture. So the gas contents say. So due to the cost and availability, maybe the gas condensate is a very good choice. Probably it's the only one for the solvent. And now as I mentioned the critical time from a pilot commercialization. And based on the proposal for the carbon tax increase, I would expect more company will go to the co-injection process. And some of the opportunities for the co-injection process here, because of time, I couldn't go over this. And some of the features from the co-injection process, for instance, reduced steam and reduced greenhouse emission, in particular, reduced SOR. And again, the oil sands operation currently emit roughly 70 megaton carbon tax per year. And again, there's a limit our board has set. So the use of solvent may potentially eliminate the need for the energy intensive steam. And the Canadian Energy Research Institute report estimates this reduction could reach 80% of fluid emission. So when I list some of the emissions, carbon emissions, and also the cost and the carbon emissions per barrels. So you can see the solvent steam process is very good potential if we want to save some of the tax-related carbon emissions. And the benefits, again, by working with the industry, as we know, large oil sands holding and the emerging recovery are key already focus in this province. And what we're doing, we try to prove the concept and proposed by the company, and using the lab experiments and also the modeling and simulation. And also, what we did is we could integrate all the lessons we learned from the research and also the pilot and the field into the field applications. So again, by doing the lab and model simulation, it would save the companies a lot of resources. So the research we are trying to do at the very beginning, as I mentioned, our goal is increase oil recovery while minimize the environment impact. And also we train a lot of grad students, postdocs in this area, and they gain experience in research and also by studying the pilot. And they learned a lot. So on the other hand, as I mentioned, in addition to SAGD, the solvent-steam co-injection could be a potential, And we would be happy because we have done extensive research, and also we summarize what is available in the past And also by working with the companies, we learned the future pilots. So our group could support companies for pilot or commercial development. For instance, we carried out numerical and analytical studies. And in particular, we start a lot on the solvent selection based on pressure, temperature, and all the geological features and the locations, and also all the properties. And also how to maximize the concentration, optimization, and modeling the viscosity of the mixture. As I mentioned, the solvent injection it will be injected in terms of gas condensate. So how to study the viscosity of the mixture? This is a very challenging topic. And also modeling the phase behavior, very important too. This is one of the most important topic for the research. And our students have done a lot of research in this area. And also the solvent injection strategy. And we mentioned these topics in my talk. And also the study, the solvent retention and mitigation in both specific in some of the challenge reservoirs. And how to optimize the brew down strategy. For instance, if we want to recover more solvent, or to maintain pressure and inject, produce more of oil. So some of the brew down strategies were also studied. And I would like to my research group, and also as I mentioned, our graduates and current students. They worked a lot, in particular in the past 4 years. They focus on some of the strength have been concentrated in this area. And I also the collaborations from industry and academia, and gave a lot of assistance. And also for the industry sponsors, and would like to particularly mention energy simulation. And almost it has been almost 15 years, and we produced the most number of students, and also the patents, and also publications, and also other companies like CMG. And we worked very closely together for the code development, and Sinuk, and also PetroChina Canada, Devon, now the CNR, Sanko, and PetroChina Rapid. Our body innovates has been supported my chair almost with the same time as energy simulation, IBM, and also the ICAS. And again, there will be announcement where ICAS will come back, and hopefully we can work again with ICAS. That's really good news. Our body innovates decide to support ICAS again. So thanks a lot, and that's all I want to present.
Okay, Dr. Chen, we have 1 minute left actually. Let me ask just one question, which I also would have. Do you know the operating profitability for these projects? Is there a general correlation on the type of oil, API, viscosity, etc., that favors SA-SAC-D, and any understanding of a cutoff where the oil will not lead to an economic project? Thanks again. From Michael Eckman.
Yeah, thank you. And for the moment, again, there has been some pilots for the heavier and bitumen. And for the most of the pilots I talked about has been focused on bitumen or oil sand recovery. So that's the viscosity was very high. It's at least 1 million centipoise. And there's some cutoffs. And as I mentioned, if the solvent recovery was 70%, that will make a profit. And also, if the SOR could be reduced by 30%, and that could also make the profit. So the most important issues is the solvent recovery rate and SOR reduction, and of course the oil rate uplift is a very important issue too. But from so far, we can see for the most pilots, the oil production has been increased by 30%. So again, in terms of the cutoffs, again, this is not the final results. So based on the price of the solvent, based on the recovery rate of the solvent, I think that those cutoffs are very important criteria for this co-injection process. And I remember remember this, the carbon tax will be increased by almost 3 times. So now you can see you either pay the carbon tax or you're going to pay the solvent. So you make your own calculation to see which one is more profitable. So that's
Yes.
very important issue.
Okay. That's a consideration down the road, depending on the carbon pricing, obviously. So
Right.
once again, thank you, Dr. Chen.